There stood a house, perched on a jagged cliff above a restless sea, weathered by centuries of salt and storm. The locals whispered about it, calling it the home by the sea, a place abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. No one ventured near after dark, and even during the day, the briny wind seemed to carry strange voices from its rotting walls. It was said that the house had once belonged to a reclusive family who had vanished without a trace. No one knew exactly what happened, but strange things started happening soon after they disappeared. Some claimed to see flickers of candlelight through the cracked windows at night, while others swore they heard the haunting melody of an old piano playing softly above the sound of crashing waves. One evening, a traveler named David arrived in the nearby village, seeking refuge from a storm. The villagers warned him about the home by the sea, but he laughed it off, dismissing it as nothing more than superstitious folklore. He was a rational man, and the thought of ghosts or curses seemed absurd. With nowhere else to stay, David decided to take shelter in the abandoned house. As he entered, the air grew cold, the scent of the sea stronger, and the walls seemed to creak in protest. Inside, dust coated everything: the furniture, the floors, and even the grand piano in the corner of the parlor. Still, the house felt strangely lived in, as though someone had left only moments before. David set up his things and lit a fire in the fireplace. As he sat in the flickering light, he began to hear faint sounds, whispers carried on the wind, coming from the sea below. He shook his head, blaming it on the storm, but the whispers grew louder. They were words now, unintelligible at first, but slowly a name emerged. Evelyn. Curious and unnerved, David searched the house. In a small, forgotten room, he found an old journal. It belonged to Evelyn, the youngest daughter of the family who had once lived there. She wrote of strange things, the way the sea seemed to call to her, the shadows that moved just out of sight, the feeling that something in the house was watching. The last entry was the most chilling. She spoke of hearing her name whispered at night, of being drawn to the cliffs, where the water seemed to glow under the moonlight. Evelyn wrote of her fear that whatever lived in the sea beneath the house wanted her, that it would come for her soon. Suddenly, the piano downstairs began to play, the same haunting melody the villagers had spoken of. David rushed back down to the parlor, heart pounding. The piano played itself, the keys moving under invisible fingers. Then, from the shadows by the window, a figure began to form, a young woman, her pale face streaked with salt water, her eyes wide with terror. "Evelyn," David whispered. She turned to him, her mouth opening, but instead of words, a low guttural wail filled the room. The windows rattled, and the fire in the hearth flickered out. Evelyn began to move toward him, her movements jerky and unnatural, as though she were being pulled by some unseen force. Behind her, the sea roared, the waves crashing louder, angrier. David stumbled back, desperate to escape, but the door slammed shut. The air grew thick with the scent of the sea, and he could feel something cold and wet wrapping around his ankles, dragging him toward the cliff's edge outside. He struggled, but the grip tightened, pulling him closer and closer to the churning ocean below. As he was dragged to the cliff, David caught one last glimpse of Evelyn, her ghostly figure standing at the edge, her hand outstretched as though she were trying to warn him. But it was too late. With one final pull, the sea claimed him. The next morning, the storm had passed, and the villagers found no sign of David. Only the whispers remained, soft, distant voices carried on the wind, calling out to anyone who dared approach the home by the sea. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.